If your revenue doubled tomorrow, would your life improve or would it implode? Most entrepreneurs think they have a growth problem. They don't. Most have a sustainability problem. Their business only works when they are working. Their company only moves when they are pushing. Their success depends entirely upon their presence, and that's not freedom. That's a trap. Today, we're going to talk about Pillar 4 of the Builder's Blueprint system, and it's sustainability and stewardship. Because growth without systems creates pressure, and pressure over time becomes burnout. One of the biggest lies entrepreneurs believe is that the solution to every problem is simply working harder. If you need more sales, work harder. If you need more profit, work harder. If you need more growth, work harder. And it works for a season. But there are only so many hours in a day, and eventually, more hours and more work, working harder and smarter, reaches a ceiling, and you cannot outwork poor systems forever. I see entrepreneurs all the time carrying burdens that systems should be carrying. Excuse me, they're solving the same problems repeatedly, answering the same questions, making the same decisions, dealing with the same problems. And it's not because they're bad leaders, it's because they haven't built systems. And every missing system becomes a tax on the owner's life. I worked with an owner several years ago who hadn't truly taken a vacation in years. It's not because he couldn't afford it, it's because he couldn't trust the business without him. He would come week after week and talk about how exhausted he was, how he didn't know if he could get up and do it again, how he hated getting up in the morning to go to work and even dreaded the weekends because he knew there was not going to be a day where he didn't get a call, where there wasn't a problem, where there wasn't something to deal with. His business had consumed his life. Every approval required him. Every customer issue came to him. Every employee question eventually found its way to him. From the outside, the business looked really successful. Revenue was growing. There was more and more opportunities, yet behind the scenes, it was fragile. So finally, one day I asked him, what happens? What happens if you're gone for 2 weeks? And literally, you could see his face change. As I asked him about it, he said, the thought of taking 2 weeks off should sound fantastic, but for me, it is terrifying. I said, okay, why? And he said, well, your question was what changes? And the answer is everything. I said, everything? And he said, yes, everything. Ray, if I'm not there, if I'm not available for even an afternoon, everything comes to a standstill. No one makes a decision. No one takes any action. They talk about it, they research, but nothing happens if I'm not there. If I'm not there, the calls don't even get answered as quickly. Emails don't get sent or they're not responded to. Decisions from the field are left hanging. That's a business that is not scalable. And it may not be your goal to scale, but your goal definitely is not this. You don't want a business that ends up consuming your life, that owns your life. You don't want a business that is dependent completely upon you. And dependency is the enemy of sustainability. You can only do so much. Now, I heard a long time ago from one of my mentors, these 9 words that could change your life. All you can do is all you can do. And that's true. And sometimes we're not doing all we can do. But if we're doing all we can do and we're doing it well, then all you can do is enough. That works for a while, and especially as a startup, it does require great effort and long hours and working through it. But friend, if you're going to do something twice, yes, just twice, you need a system. Because if you're going to do it twice, You need a system so that you can do it. And when you grow enough that you can hand that off and someone else will know exactly what they are assigned to do, how long it would take, and what the finished product should look like. Here's the truth between profitability and sustainability. Many companies are profitable. Very few are sustainable. The failure rate in business not only has to do with external conditions, what I've found in working with hundreds and thousands of business and business owners is so often the owner, the leader, the founder just throws up their hands and says, "This is not the life I want." And so here comes another challenge, and they just go, I'm not up to doing it again. It just requires too much. It costs too much. So often I have business owners and leaders say, "Man, I would give anything to just have a 9 to 5, to show up at 9 o'clock. Man, I'll show up at 7 o'clock, but I don't want to have to think about the business before 7. And when I walk out the door at 5 o'clock, I want to turn off my phone, no calls, no text, no emails, no questions, no, hey, have you got a minute? Just 9 to 5, 7 to 5. I don't care. I just don't want to do this anymore." Profitability means the business generates money. Sustainability means it can continue generating revenue and value without destroying the owner, without destroying the owner's family, without destroying the team. Yes, I believe in seasons of maximum effort and putting in more time than is usual, but it's for a season. If you can't say, well, you say it. I hear so many business owners say, "I've just got to get through this season. And when this person gets hired, when I get through this problem, when I deal with this, then it's going to go better." And I said, how many times have you said that? How many times have you felt that? How many times have you dreamed of that? But when you finish one, you can just count on there's another one or a new one. And so often the new problem, the new situation looks just like the last one. A sustainable business creates margin, not just margin in money. It gives margin in time. It gives margin in leadership, that you as an owner, as a leader, can develop your own leadership. Remember, John Maxwell's become really famous for saying everything rises and falls on leadership. And most leaders that I know, most every leader that I work with says, "I know I want to grow as a leader. I know I need to grow as a leader, but I just don't have time. I don't have time to carve this out." And I remind them of that important time when you're on a flight. You've been there. The steward or stewardess is going through all the just in case. And they say, just if we happen to, we don't think we will, but if we lose cabin pressure, an oxygen mask is going to drop down. Now, if you're traveling with someone elderly or a small child, first put on your mask and then assist them in putting on theirs. And it's so counterintuitive. We feel like we think we should help them first. But if it's harder, if it's a struggle, if it takes too much time, not only do you not get the mask on them to give them the oxygen they need, you pass out. And now both of you are in trouble. And so it's important to put the oxygen mask on first. You need margin for your life. You need margin for your business. You need margin for your leadership. You need margin in relationships. So much changes when you just have enough time, make enough time, take enough time to let the people that have been entrusted to you, the people that you work with, know, I really care about you as a person. So often people say, so often you've heard and I've heard, people are our greatest assets, but we treat them as the cheapest, the most unimportant. I don't have time for you. I don't have time to train you. I don't have time to ask about you and your family and what's really going on. Many entrepreneurs, excuse me again, build profitable business that quietly bankrupt their personal lives. Kingdom builders pursue both profitability and sustainability, and it doesn't have to be one or the other. Here's a biblical case for systems. In Exodus chapter 18, God has delivered the children of Israel from Egypt, and he's taking them to the promised land. Now, if you are familiar with that narrative, the account, It took longer than they expected. It took longer than it should because of people problems, because of a lack of faith on them. And so you may just pause for a second and say, isn't it amazing how it doesn't matter how much changes, some things remain the same. And so here's what's happening. Every single person who has an issue, every single person who has a problem, and there are more than 1 million, some have estimated up to 3 or 4 million Israelites in this Exodus journey. They come to the tent of their leader, who from early morning till late night hears one case, one problem, one situation after another, over and over and over and over. Now, if you are a leader, and if you've been a leader very long, you just felt some of the exhaustion, some of the frustration that Moses had to have been feeling. He was overwhelmed. He was overwhelmed leading Israel. He's overwhelmed with dealing with all of the problems. And in Exodus 18, his father-in-law, Jethro, came. Now, he's a real man, and Jethro's a real father-in-law. And so I at least wonder what the relationship was like between the two of them. Jethro comes and he watches, and then he gets a moment with Moses, on purpose, I'm sure, and he says, Moses, what you're doing is not good. I'm sure that hit Moses like a ton of bricks. Not good? What do you want? I'm doing all I can. I'm giving my very best. I'm giving my time. I'm giving wisdom. But Jethro's father-in-law stepped in and said, let me give you some greater wisdom. If you continue this, you're going to wear yourself out and you're going to wear the people out. Here's what you do. You pick men from among you and you look at their reputation and their work and their wisdom. And Moses, you have them, put them over groups of 50 and 100 people and have the people go to them. And then let them solve the problems, let them help. And if it's too difficult for them, then they can bring it to you. Moses, you've got to, and this was before the word was known and it was a different language, but you've got to delegate responsibility. Create a structure, empower leaders, build their capacity, and now you've got something. Some people hear the word systems and think it sounds corporate, but systems are deeply biblical. It's the way Jesus trained the 12 apostles to carry on the greatest mission ever. Let me pour into you. Let me help build and develop you as leaders so you can build and develop others who will build and develop others who will build and develop others so that the whole world can be changed. Notice this, the solution wasn't Moses, just start an hour earlier and work an hour later. It wasn't go batch them all together. It was create a structure, empower leaders, build capacity. It was better systems. Good systems are tools of stewardship. It is stewarding yourself and your time and your wisdom well, but it's also serving your team, your business, and the customers better. Systems protect people. Systems create clarity. Systems multiply effectiveness. My mentor, John Maxwell, again says, he's famous for talking about the law of the lid, that your leadership capacity, the level of your leadership becomes the lid for the organization. And if you're a level 2, the business is going to bump up, but it will never surpass you. And if you go to a 4, that's infinitely, it's double better, but then your business is going to get to go to a 4 and you're going to multiply your efforts by a 4. So if you continue to grow and you develop the people that you support, then you have multiple multipliers throughout the business. You have a system that works. Systems also allow leaders to focus on what only they can do or what they can do best. Here are 5 systems every business needs. They're foundational. First, a leadership system. Again, we've already mentioned it, but there's a pressure that says, I don't have time to build that. I don't have time to develop leaders. I've got too many frontline, in the trenches, in the weeds, executing, taking care of problems to be concerned about growing as a leader and to be developing leaders. But when you say that, and more importantly, not just what you say, when you live like that, when you lead like that, then don't be frustrated when you get results that are just like what you've gotten or actually worse, because it doesn't improve. It only gets worse. It only gets harder. You only get burned out. You have less energy. You have less bandwidth. You have less desire to deal with it. So first you build a leadership system. That's why so many people turn to me and others for coaching to say, I want to see what I don't see and think what I don't think. I need to elevate as a leader, and I want some help with that. Second, a communication system. It's how information moves through the organization. And it's so back and forth. It's emails, it's text, it's a call, it's a note, it's a pop by. And it gets done so sporadically that no one knows where to look to get the information. There's no flow. And so it's a communication system and a communication rhythm. What's communicated, to who, why, and how. The third system is an operational system. It's how work gets done, notice this word, consistently. The objective is not just to get the job done, it's to figure out the best way to get the job done and to put it in a system where you approach the same thing the same way every time and you get the same result and you keep growing and tweaking and perfecting. No, you'll never get there, but you get better and better and better and better. Fourth, it's a financial system. It's how money is tracked, measured, and stewarded. For so many business owners, it just becomes, I've got to get more top line revenue to cover all these expenses. And we turn around and go, where did all the money go? We don't know. We don't have a plan. You don't have a budget. And when you don't do that, you're going to have problems. But when you develop a financial system, you get it figured out. And fifth, it's a people development system. It's not only important for you to grow as a leader, but the more you pour into, the more you invest in your team, as employees grow and advance, then the whole team rises. You've heard it said, a rising tide lifts all ships. A rising, developing team of people brings the whole business up. When one system is weak, pressures increase. When all five of these systems work together, scale becomes possible. In fact, it almost becomes inevitable because every person is more capable. And so here's the audit for you. Ask yourself these three questions. First, what breaks when I'm gone? If you're not sure because you've not tried it, just give it a shot. I talked to a good friend early this week, and he said, I'm going to go 7 days without my phone. I said, no phone? How about your iPad? Nope, no iPad. Your computer? Nope. I am completely disconnecting. And I just congratulated him because we've been working on that growing and developing so that he could do that. I said, what are you afraid of? And he said, I'm not afraid of anything. And it feels so good. This will be the first real vacation I've had maybe my whole career. And I'm not going to tell you how old he is, but he's older than me. So ask yourself, what breaks when I'm gone? Second, where do the same problems keep showing up? Now, I don't think you'll ever have a problem-free life. You'll have a problem-free business. But I can remember for myself saying, I am sick of having the same problems over and over and over, because we just get up to that problem solved without getting ahead of it and saying, what do I do to never have this problem again? And part of it is slowing down and putting the systems, developing the systems so that you can. And then third question, what requires me that should not require me? What are you spending your time on that brings the least results? What are you spending your time on? And notice I said spending. You might even say wasting, but spending instead of investing. Because spending your time, when you spend money, it's just gone. When you invest your money, it comes back. When you spend your time, it's just gone. When you invest your time, it's going to multiply. Systems are one of the greatest multipliers. Leadership development is one of the greatest multipliers. Your answers will reveal where your systems are missing. And where systems are missing, burnout is growing. Friend, if you're listening to this or watching it and you feel that burnout, my heart goes out to you. I've been there. I have been so frustrated, just said, it's not worth it anymore. But something inside of me said, Ray, there's got to be a better way. And that's when I became serious I'd heard people talk about systems. I'd thought about leadership and thought I was a pretty good leadership, but became really serious about developing systems and growing as a leader and developing leaders. And it was a game changer for me. Here's the truth. You cannot scale chaos. You can only scale systems. The goal is not simply growth. The goal is sustainable growth. It's growth that creates freedom. It's growth that honors God. It's growth that strengthens your family instead of consuming it. It's growth that develops your team. It's growth that allows you to have a greater kingdom impact in the world. And that's what it's all about. Remember, this is kingdom entrepreneur. So I'll just be real straight with you. When you don't have the systems, when you're living that other way, you are not able to build the kingdom of God. You may not be giving God even much of a thought. So I want to offer you something. It's called the Sustainability Scorecard. One of the things I do, and I've already mentioned it several times, is work with owners, leaders, and businesses to build their business and their life the right way, to build their business in order that it can scale. It's design your business to scale, and sometimes it means taking some things apart and figuring it out. So I've developed a scorecard that will help you evaluate your business and your leadership. If you'd like it, go to Instagram. I'm Instagram at the number 4, RAY, the number 2, and just send me a direct message for sustainability, and I'll send you over that sustainability scorecard. And then in our next solo episode, we'll discuss Pillar 5, which is legacy and multiplication, because the ultimate goal isn't just building a business. It's building something that outlives you. Until next time, let's build it right.